arriba ese coro que arranca, que dice, Batiki bate, chocolate, Batiki bate, Batiki bate, bate chocolate.
And welcome to another episode of Living on Earth, and this time we're going to explore the city of Cartagena in South America. I don't know if you can see it here in the map, or if not in the screen you can see the location of the map. And we have been there. I did born there, and we're going to talk a little bit about our experience, especially you coming from outside, that you have not been there before, because when we grow up in there we kind of take for granted things, and we have quite a remarkable pilgrimage in different occasions. And I know that you hold very dearly your experiences with a saint in Cartagena.
Yeah, we had we led a few pilgrimages there.
Yeah.
The first time we went, actually, we visited the sanctuary of, it's a Jesuit priest called San Pedro. And first time I went, I felt a presence there. And I thought maybe we should go back at one point. So a few years later, we had a group of people with us, and so we went there. Often, when I feel a presence in an area, it means there's work to do. Sometimes, often it's there's energies that want to be released, or some type of work, spiritual work to be done. So we went one day. So there's a chapel, and beside is like the monastery. It's very old. It's since probably one of the original buildings, like 400 years old. They actually have the bones under the altar of San Pedro in like this glass sarcophagus thing. But beside, you can walk up, and you can actually go in his bedroom, which is very simple Jesuit. There's just the bed, and it's like white stucco, and then you have a crucifix at the other end. Very austere, very clean, kind of Zen. But so the day we arrived, we met and there's a courtyard, like a garden, and I was explaining to the people how I'd felt a presence, and we might have to do some work releasing energy or something. And right then this big mango fell right on my head. It like really hurt. Like it was mangoes are big. Mango trees are tall, so when you have a mango falling, it's a message from above, I guess. So I was a bit shaken, but I knew something was up. And then we proceeded to go up into San Pedro's bedroom, and we were all overcome with this tremendous feeling of love. The love was this kind of love that heals all. That was the message. So San Pedro was like a priest, a Jesuit priest. Came from Spain, I guess, in his early or late 20s, and he worked with the slaves.
Yeah, San Pedro. The title of his sainthood is San Pedro, the protector of the slaves. So I cannot imagine how during all the times of the slavery where it was a legal business and it was day after day. I mean, he was only one of the generations that witnessed that, but he received the slaves, and after the long journey from Africa, they were all wounded and sick and treated like animals and be ready to be sold and so on. So if we can imagine a job where you have no hope of being changed, because that was kind of the law at that time, and
that was
it lasted
normal. For centuries it went on, and no one questioned it.
Nobody questioned it.
That was just the way the world worked.
And he died, and he didn't see the freedom of the slavers, but he so committed over and over, continuous his work and caring.
The slave market was right outside the chapel, so when a slave ship would arrive, he'd try to convince the slave owners to give up the sick or the weak, and when they did, he'd nurse them back to health and
baptize him, because this is an important part of the story.
The baptism.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the bit of the background of San Pedro, and well, when we went in his sanctuary there, 300, 400 years after, his presence is still very much there. His presence is, we felt overwhelmed, and on the contrary of thinking that we had to go release something, we received something. He blessed, he gave us some type of blessing. And I felt the love, the true message of Christianity, outside of all the other teachings of the church. The true message is that love conquers all. In the end, love reigns supreme. And there's nothing that not enough love will in the end heal, you know. And so we were just overwhelmed with this beautiful feeling, and
but it was an interesting part, because we were in a group and you were the only man, and we were carrying water, and at one moment you felt the impulse to use the water as kind of representing certain baptism for us. And we truly understood that the water carries information and carries that love. And you were sanctified, and you did share the water.
I got the message, well, we have to use the water.
Use the water.
So we went around and we gave water, and people had, blessed. And of course, these things have been done, in different traditions. But this was new.
And it was so intimate.
In this way.
Yeah.
And
so alive.
Yeah, it was very, very alive, and we understood really what the meaning of baptism was, and the cleansing of the water. And
it was in the same pilgrimage where we have that experience of the waters, and we kind of deeply understood the sacrament. And simultaneously, at that time, there were millions of immigrants from Venezuela to Colombia.
Yeah, they're all over, and a lot of them are in Cartagena, and they're very destitute. They arrive and they have no money. They're all over the streets, and there was one couple with 2 children, and the woman was so thin. It was like her arms were like, they were literally starving. And anyway, we helped them. We took them shopping, bought food.
Fed them.
We fed them. And it was the first time I was cooking for someone who was so hungry. They would devour anything. I'd cook a dozen eggs, and they were literally starving.
Yeah, and at one point we say, well, maybe we should do a ceremony for them, just to remove them from the consciousness of where they were coming from.
Often when we work with people, we try to deal directly with, whether we can do an energy cleansing or something they're carrying, or
uplift them.
We can have someone can sense tremendous relief. Anything that they're carrying that they don't need anymore. But as we approach them to do that level of work, it was just what we were taking on was just like, there's no way. This is like a cultural it goes back to slavery or before. And all we could do was use the tool we had been given by San Pedro, which was that blessing.
Yeah.
So again, we use that with them to uplift them, to cleanse them of whatever.
Well, more than cleanser was like we witnessed that they were in a kind of a corridor of energy that they belong. The whole mentality of poverty and slavery, as you say, and not maybe physically, but the whole suffering. And then after the ceremony, we witness that corridor, they have changed to another corridor, which have a much more easy flow. And it's so profoundly true for the history of Cartagena, because it is a city that it did not born out of wealth itself. It had to go through certain very powerful, transformative and suffering that they arrived there. But if you see it now where it is, Cartagena receive wealth, information, and people from all over the world. I mean, literally all over the world. There's a point where unity is there, and of course San Pedro is a place of pilgrimage.
It's a kind of a great mystery, Like we've been different places on the world, India in particular, that they have holy sites where someone received and was enlightened, like the Maharishi, or and they're holy sites, and the person is said to have received enlightenment. You can visit the Buddha tree, where it's supposed to be the same offspring of at the same and that's a holy site. But Cartagena is not known as a holy site. It's not known for that. But we were so surprised that we had that same sanctitude of
even more potent, because it was not diluted by any form. Yes, it's a Christian form there, and there is Christian pilgrimage that happens to San Pedro. However, it's all, I won't say confused, but entangled with the pleasure of being in Cartagena. When you go there, is the liberty of the senses. There's food, there's dance, there is sex, sensuality. Is all about the intertwining of that sanctitude with all the different kinds of energies that meet in that place, and there is the political treaties and a big convention center and a city that is surrounded by walls, and there is this history of pirates, and so it's so rich, as you were saying in the journey, is so rich that I'll say it's worth it to visit again.
Yeah, we'll definitely go back. But the mystery of San Pedro, and like I said, it's not known for that as really a holy site, and they don't offer that. It's not, when you go to India, well, they teach you the meditation of the Maharishi or whatever,
Yeah.
from a long lineage of different masters, and
this is a true jewel, just
and we don't know how he got in such a state of sanctitude. Maybe through serving, through the seva, we don't know, or he.
Yeah.
It's definitely a feeling of overwhelming love and joy to be there.
I'm very excited to give you teachings from this place, because this is the place that I born, and therefore I have study and have in my body the resonance of this place, and I understand in a very deep level, at the level of my bones, the poetry of this place, the function that have a very remarkable energy and function in the planet. And perhaps there are other places along the world that have that kind of resonance. But in this particular example, in Cartagena, in Colombia, there is this place where all the energy of the Andes comes and rests for a moment, and all the energies of Europe and the Caribbean, Africa, they gather in this place again to be a part of resting and also dissipating. So it's like a magnet that picked up the good, the bad, the different frequencies of the earth, and serve as an antenna, as a distributor through the Americas, through the waters, because it's right in the coast. So it's at the edge of the waters of the Atlantic Ocean and the land is desert. So it have all the richness of information. In some places, of course, we all have that powerful receptivity. However, in this one, it receives particular transformative energies. For example, it's in this place where the Inquisition was present, the slavery was a big market of slavery to go through all South America and the Caribbean. It was a place, and it still is, a place where it gathers wealth. Right now it's one of the jet set of the world, where people gather there to spend some time. It's a high touristic city, beautiful. And there are treaties signed up from all over the world. So it's a place of gathering. It's a place where on earth you can visit that kind of places and filled up the information that you're missing in your energy field. It's a place where you're not only relaxing, but you're also expanding at the same time. And it is an antenna from the south and the north. It is the one that receives all the transformation and send back all the richness of the land. And we can see that historically. The Spaniards came, landed in there, recollect all the wealth of South America and ship it back to Europe. It was the wealth of the slave treated that lasts for 400 years, gathered in Brazil, in Recife in Brazil, and in Cartagena and some parts in Mexico. And from there, again, was distributed the wealth of that time. So on Earth, there are these special places, and it could be along the coast or it could be on top of the mountains. But in that recycling energy of water and earth, water and desert, wind, it's a moment, if you stand in there in that moment, in that now, you're able to go through your body of all the history, of all the wealth that is in there. And it doesn't mean that it's only wealth in terms of richness, but it's also in wealth of information. So all gathers in there, and either in power, mispower, or in things that it need to be distributed, expressed, being seen. So it is a powerful place where history have been changed so many times, and it is a fascinating to witness all the steps that you can go through when you are in that place of transformation. So I invite you now to join the conversation and to expand your knowledge about this particular place that I hold in my heart so dearly, since it's the place where I born, and I have beautiful and uplifting memories of the sea, the sun, and the sand. So let's move to our next stage.
Okay, sitting with the spine straight. Feel yourself. In the journey, we did notice that the abundance is actually in the earth there. It's the tail or the mouth of a dragon where the energy enters and exits, you know. So it's probably no coincidence that there's a city there that was precisely that. It was where all the wealth of South America was taken.
Well, it was the flow between the taking the wealth of South America, but also receiving the message from Europe, Portugal, and Spain, that it was a need of change. That it was yes, they came with very low frequency and very violently, but it really set up a signature of how the land was going to develop. So, and it did enter from Cartagena.
Yeah. Well,
so it is that link that united to different parts of the world, and really the wealth of the planet or that site is information, and manifest physically in all the crazy amount of gold that was out, and also the all amount of information that the Spaniards brought to America.
And they said the ships would arrive with slaves and they'd go back with gold.
Yes.
So it's part of the tension and the conflict of the place, which again is in the earth. There's the earth plates are tense. There's a little bit of friction, but it's not a zone of earthquakes or volcanic, and that's further up the Andes. But there's a lot of tension there. It's as if two plates are in friction, you know, and
the fact that people, it's a tourist, it's a destination for Colombians and South American, and they gather there and they drop all their tensions in there and they go for relaxation. So it is also, it magnetizes all the conflicts of the Americas, and it just put it in the sea and maintain certain recycling and from the very depths to the surface of the city.
And there's wealth in the seas too. They just found a few years ago a big Spanish galleon, and I think it's $1.5 billion worth of gold, and it went down in a storm, and they were all fighting about who it belongs to. But that was just one ship, and there were hundreds, if not thousands, of ships over the 400 years, you know.
Yes, yes.
So it's the amount of wealth that came out of there.
Another wealth is the genetic mix, because in that region there were the Caribbeans, there were also the natives from the inside of the land, there were the arriving of the blacks, there were the arriving of the Spaniards, and the mulatto and the Sambo genetic pool start, where the richness of the mix make a specific race. The Latin.
They are very, very unique. The people are very beautiful, tall, very different than elsewhere in all the Andean cultures or the Mexican cultures. It's very unique, the race of people there.
The mix is served really from all the Caribbean, and it's kind of a pool there that is very unique, and that's part of the wealth of Cartagena, for sure. Yeah, and continues to be now, is Canadians marrying with Cartagenians.
Yeah.
No, I am not giving this example because of us, but is because of the tourism from the north to the south. There are hundreds of couples that have come out of that exchange.
Yeah, well, we know another one too, and
there are so many, and so it continues to be that place of renovation, relaxation. And it's just to distinguish on earth. I mean, I cannot think of any other places that I have visited that have that quality, but I'm sure that since earth works in trinities and in parts, so here we have a very strong emanation of information to the whole entire planet. So I hope you have enjoyed with us this journey. And I'm really proud that we have visited Cartagena, and I invite you to like us, to share, and to drop off us a note, a comment, and see what hopefully you will accompany us in our next episode, next Friday, every Friday, for now, on Living on Earth. Until then, bye.
Bye.